Alright guys, welcome to VALORANT News. The playoff bracket in the Americas is officially set, and can you believe it? NRG, after all the shambles of the last couple of weeks, have managed to make it happen and taken down Leviathan last night. The battle of two teams that are certainly underperforming expectations so far this season, but NRG keep their hopes alive. Can they possibly make a run all the way through to Toronto? Very much interested in your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I greatly appreciate it. We already have teams making it out in the Chinese region, and we'll get to what that looks like again in a second. But yesterday was a big series, really. DRX versus Gen.G. Both of these teams getting some good practice in, really, at this point, because both of these teams were going to be able to make it to the playoffs regardless, but seeding is still a relevant factor too. This was one of the worst series you're going to see Caron and Munchkin play. You're not going to see it really every day. They did win the game 1 Lotus 13-8, but after that, it wasn't really a pretty time. 13-10 to DRX on the game 2. High and Min had a great series, and then it was 13-9 on the final map as well. Munchkin 7-15. And, you know, Caron kind of turned up, but the split was pretty bad for him, as was the first map of the series too. So DRX, they get the win there. The other game, though, that people were probably looking at more closely was this second match of the day, and that was Nongshim versus Red Force, or Nongshim Red Force versus Ada Division. And it's so sad for the Japanese fans. I feel like they deserve more than we have seen from them as of late. And Zeta, they had a good chance here to make it through to the playoffs. The opportunity was there, but in the end it just wasn't quite good enough, right? So look, it is, let's be real, the teams that earned it, the teams that probably deserved it, that made it through in the end. Zeta had a really rough time on their own map pick on the Lotus. They won the Pearl against Nongshim and were giving good confidence going into the final map of the series, but in the end, it just wasn't to be, right? And on the split, they just couldn't get anything going on their attacking side. No decisiveness, and in the end, they did unfortunately deserve to lose, and that they did. So Nongshim, former Sinprasa Gaming, the team that made it through Ascension, they get the win. They make it to the playoffs, and again the Japanese teams of Zeta and of, well, now it is partially DFM anyway, they fail to make it through. So tough to see, because they're down in 2 and 3, out as well with Team Secrets. They're not going to be at the playoffs. Look, the teams that are going to be at the playoffs are, I think, the deserving teams, and it's not like Zeta were making Toronto anyway, let's be real. But I would love to have something a little bit more for the Japanese fans to cheer about, but right now that does not seem very likely, unfortunately. But this is the way that the bracket is currently shaping up. We'll see how it looks in a second. Before we get there, a couple more series. This is well underway now. Boom Esports just took the game 1 against DFM 13-10, and game 2 is about to get underway. So yeah, this is more than likely going to be a foregone conclusion. We'll see. Maybe DFM can put off an upset, but I think for Boom Esports, they win that series. They secure themselves as the comfortable #1 seed. And on the other side after that, RRQ versus Team Secrets. Again, if RRQ win, they get to 4-1, and that would be real nice for them to secure that #1 seed as well. So a lot to play for there. In the Chinese region, we did get Edward getting the win. I mean, again, they didn't make it easy on themselves. I'm sure that Simon at some point was watching this series thinking, damn, maybe these cats are actually going to go straight out of the tournament. But they didn't, because, well, as we can see from Kang and Chi-Chi, Kang really turned up today after a difficult recent series. And yeah, Vukasho on DRG tried his best, but in the end it wasn't quite enough. DRG go down 13-8 map 1, but still the split, you know, the 13-11 back the other way. But this is the Edward trademark. This is what they do. Gianni had a real bad map here on the Neon, but he bounced back on the final map, to be fair, on the Deadlock. 13-8 in the end on the Ascent. And look, they did enough. Winning both pistols really was the deciding factor for EDG, I think, here, really, because that took them at least to 5 rounds on the attacking side. And that was enough in the end for them to get over the line. So good work from EDG. This is the script that they follow. We know what their script is. They lose, they top their group or whatever, right? They get close to it anyway. They drop down to losers, surprisingly, and then they make the run and qualify and win the whole thing anyway. And I'm not going to say anything until that might happen again, right? So on the other side, though, this was big, right? Trace Esports, your team that was there in Bangkok at the start of the season, they got 2-0'd by Billy Gaming. Big result here from BLG, and who knows, maybe there's a timeline where NRG somehow make it all the way to Toronto and we get BLG versus NRG again, but pretty unlikely as it stands. They won the Fracture 13-8, they won the Lotus 13-4, was not a close series, and BLG advanced to play, as we just saw, Edward Gaming. This is in a few days' time now. I mean, time. We're 11 days away from this game, so they have lots of prep time for this particular series. But this is the deciding series. Edward will be favourites. They always tend to win in these important games, but BLG will be confident that maybe this time is going to be different. So if Edward win, they make it to Toronto. If they lose, they're not going to be there. The teams that are going to be there are at the upper side of the bracket, Wolves and GLI Gaming. It's pretty funny for XLG actually, because this tweet they did was, I think, their first tweet on Twitter as a new, as a team, because the Chinese region teams don't really make a Twitter until they feel like they need it. And when they tweeted this, they had a grand total of, I think, about 7 followers, which is pretty funny. So anyway, they're going to be in Toronto for the Masters Championship and probably with some more followers on the board. Let's talk about the Americas though, because big couple of games last night. In the first series, it was pretty much a foregone conclusion who was going to make winners, who wasn't. But we know that, we think anyway, the coach of Loud is about to get fired. And this is, well, the team tried their best to win, but Luxo realizing probably that even if he absolutely carries, it's still not going to be good enough. Good performance from Ye overall, he definitely turned up towards the end of this series, and let's have a look at the evidence for that. It was a pretty close one. It was 2-1 in the end, and it's not like EG will look at this and say, wow, we're back, right? But Ye played pretty well when it mattered. The tough thing is for Loud is that, again, with Pancada and Luxo, this shouldn't be a massive surprise. The two guys that can actually shoot back consistently on that team, they were shooting back consistently, but it still wasn't enough. They got rid of Vinny. Did it improve the firepower? Maybe. But this is always a banger series, right? EG Loud always tends to be a banger series. Game 1, they lost on the Lotus. Pancada with a masterclass on the Omen. Game 2, they won on overtime 14-12. Ye with a 26-21 performance on the Jet. Pancada goes 34-13 for the L. That was brutal to take. And then after that, Pancada didn't have the best final map on the Omen. Luxo tried to take over, but it wasn't good enough. Another 13-11 with a major comeback on the defensive side. So insane banger series. I mean, EG versus Loud always seems to deliver. And look, Loud wanted something to give their fans something to cheer about. They weren't going to make it through anyway. I think they showed a bit more promise here, but the fact of the matter is they've still lost. I think they can try and come back stronger, but they've certainly got a lot to work on, right, if they want to give anything from that region something to cheer about going forwards, to be fair. So that's where the series concluded. Let's talk, though, about the other series of the day, because this was the big one. NRG versus Lev, and this was Com kind of saying, look, it was FNS, just peek the guy, just swing him and get the kill, which I thought was pretty entertaining. But we had Lev NRG tied up 10-10 in the game 1. And this was just a massive series, because, as we've said now for the last couple of weeks, this was always going to be the series that determines which team was going to playoffs and which team was not. Lev have struggled this stage, but they've shown a bit more promise than NRG have as of recent, right? And as FNS says, huge game, wish us luck. And in the end, they get the 2-0 dub. It wasn't clean, it wasn't convincing, but they got the job done. Rossi had a real bad series here, and Rossi actually ended the stage with one of the worst performances by the numbers of any of the players in the league. He wasn't horrific compared to some of the players that have now been dropped, but he was certainly down there compared to 2G and the like. I mean, you can have a look at it really. If we look real quick at the stats for the Americas stage 1 so far, if I just order by the lowest ratings in the league, we'll find Vinny, Rafa, Havoc, Boostio, FNS is here at a 0.78. But, Rossi's not a million miles away at a 0.87 here, right? He's not had a good stage for him at all, given how good he was on C9. But obviously, it's a very different team, very different adaptation. Is Rossi now a bad player? No. Is he playing in a system which is just failing? Yeah. And King can try his best, but it's not going to happen. So Lev, just again, a very confusing team. The problem for them is that it's twofold, their issues. They've also lost a lot of their fans. A lot of fans from that region are not wanting to support their team. They recently signed on, Curry, right, as a creator, which was one of the decisions of all time, because many of their fans are saying, look, you've already pretty much got rid of heritage as a team and signed players from other regions, and now you're doing the same for content creators. It doesn't really align with the vision the fans want. And the vision the fans want might not matter if you're winning everything, but if you're not, then it's going to be a big problem, right? So Lev eventually go down. Good series from NRG. FNS had 19 kills over 2 maps, so it is what it is. But he led his team to victory. They won the game 1 fracture 13-15 after a rapid overtime, and then the Icebox at that point. Lev were struggling to keep themselves in the game, and a great second half here from Marder on the Reyna on the Icebox was certainly something to witness. They got over the line in the end. So NRG, they fell over the finish line, and they secured playoffs. maps. Now, of course, they secured playoffs. It's not ideal. If you're going to secure playoffs, you would love to be starting in the winner's side. They will not be. They will be starting in the worst possible position. But they are 3 series wins away, which feels like a lot, but take it one at a time, from making it to Toronto. So FNS says playoffs, I've got to be better though. But they made it, right? NRG made it after all the drama, after all the problems. They did get the job done. Rossi says, sorry to everyone, completely failed. Look, who knows where Liv are going to go from here, what changes they might need to make. But as bad as NRG have been, Liv losing to them is one of the worst possible losses, right? Like, at the end of the day, NRG have good name value, but they've not been playing good stuff, and it's not like this series was spectacular by any means from them. So it certainly will be a conversation for Liv to be like, okay, what do we, where do we go from here after a performance such as that? So yeah, people were talking about FNS's numbers as well, whether it's even possible that he drops over 30 in a whole series. Is he averaging 10 kills a map? And look, if you're averaging 10 kills a map and your teammates are averaging 20, that is absolutely fine. But there's obviously a feeling that NRG and FNS will need him to, let's say, develop a little bit more in terms of his play if they actually want to win anything and go further than they currently have. They make it out of a difficult group, to be fair. G2, MIBR, C9, NRG, Lev, Furia was a tough group. Beautiful symmetry here, by the way. You don't even need to look at difference, championship points. Okay, championship points are relevant, but you don't need to look at map difference anything, because one team was 5-0, there was a 4-1 team, a 3-2, 2-3, 1-4, 0-5. Absolutely beautiful. We didn't get out of the other group on the other side. This is what the bracket is going to look like. So we saw this yesterday. We talked about it from the Sentinels angle, mainly playing Cloud9 round 1 is a big game, and if you win that, you play G2, and if you win that, you make it to Toronto, but that's far from a guarantee at all, as we have even seen in other regions already. NRG and EG, they were always, even if NRG made it, going to start in lower round 1, and that's where NRG start. Now, the way that this bracket works, I'm 99% sure, at least this is how it is in the other regions, is that the winner of the top series goes on to play the upper semi-final, and the loser of this top series goes on to play the upper side of the lower bracket, right? So effectively that means MIBR 100T, the loser there, plays NRG. So who's the favourite? MIBR 100T could go either way. Feels like a bit of a 50-50 to be fair, but whoever loses, NRG certainly aren't going to be the favourites, right? They play either 100T or MIBR in the first round. I guess it could be worse. Maybe it could be worse, but for a lower round 1 game, that's kind of as difficult as it's going to get. And from there, the bracket will then flip. So let's say, hypothetically, Sentinels or G2. Like, let's say it's Sen versus G2 in this match here, and then Sen lose to G2. That could be the NRG game in lower round 2, and that would be, like such a crucial game if they wanted to make it through to Masters Toronto. But very much into your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. As always, hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.